Live. We're going live. I have coffee. Do you have coffee?
I do. I have my woman up giant iced coffee. It's one of those mornings.
Oh, I can relate. Yes, this is a very, very full cup of espresso.
Oh,
So, it's one of those things you never quite know what's going to happen when you drink all this espresso. I might just jitter right out of my chair. You never can tell. Let me pull that volume down, and there we go. So, all righty. Well, good morning, everybody. Let's see. The people are entering. Good morning. Good morning.
good morning, peoples.
One of these days, we're going to have to we have like a certain group of people here that show up every week, which we love you. Thank you. Thank you. We should have some of them come on in a Zoom meeting one time. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
I think that would be fun because one of the people that joined, Pam Pedigo, she is the queen of professional standards. Like you are the queen of compliance. She is the queen of pro standards. So maybe we can have Pam join us. Let us know in the comments, Pam, if you're up for such a thing.
That would be fun.
That would be fun. Well, she's a fun gal, so that would be really good. Yeah. So, what's new?
Not a whole lot's new. I feel like, people are behaving the same. I think maybe there's some better behavior going on out there. I routinely get text messages and emails of people sending me photos that they've taken of open house signs. It's kind of comical. Everybody needs an outlet, and since we told them not to post it in the group, they're just texting it to me, so that's fun.
Well, maybe you can figure out like the blur function or something so you can take out names.
There was one recently that would have been mostly blurred because it was a lot going on, a lot in one photo. So, So
a lot in one photo. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was like 3 signs, multiple flags.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot. And that was in the front yard. I don't even know what was on the street. So, I think the people, in this group, they're seeing basically the same type of behavior, hopefully less. I mean, I feel I was out a little bit this weekend and I didn't really see much going on, which was a good thing. So nothing really new to report, I mean, the conversations, it's like, I don't know how many times people have to hear the same things, but so I don't have anything new because it's just the same conversations week after week in these groups I'm in.
What are they talking about the most? What is the one thing that nobody can seem to comprehend?
Why can't we do open houses?
Oh, geez. And what's interesting is I think we're kind of seeing like a little consumer uptick in, I want to see open houses because I'm seeing more people kind of wanting to do the looky-loo thing. And you're like, you guys, you realize we have like this pandemic going, right?
Yeah.
And they don't seem to care. And, like one guy wanted to see my new listing. And I said, well, are you pre-approved? Can I have a copy of your pre-approval letter? And he's like, I don't really think that's any of your business.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa. Hey, dude, I don't know who you are. I don't feel like playing COVID roulette right now, but I just thought it was really kind of interesting. And, it's one thing I noticed that was a kind of a shift between this new listing that I have and my last listing is everybody before seemed to have an agent. And so the agent would set everything up, and not a problem. I'm seeing this time more people out on their own. I don't know whether they think it's going to be the, I can go get a deal with the listing agent kind of thing. But I just kind of thought that was odd because I hadn't really experienced that. So maybe that's
an interesting shift. I think, as I was out this weekend, I think things are busier. People are having a sense that life is more normal than it should be. I did see a lot more people wearing masks, so that was nice. I wonder if people are just starting to feel like, we're trying to get back to normal and there's not really anywhere to go. So let's drive around and find an open house because those are free and
Yeah.
plentiful. At least they usually were. Maybe some of that's going on.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting thing because I had two people contact me about showing the listing directly. And I'm like, now, do you guys have an agent that you're working with? And no, 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 we don't. And I'm like, you sure you don't have an agent you're working with? And they said, no, we don't. And so I think they're kind of going back to that. Maybe the listing agent's going to cut me a deal kind of thing, And I'm like, I don't know where they're getting that from. But, we all know that. We all know how that happens. Um, but and then they complain about losing out on things, and it's like, well, you don't have anybody really fighting in your corner for you. You have a listing agent, and the listing agent's primary fiduciary duty is to the seller, and then you get this buyer come along and is like, well, get me the house, and it's like, why? When I got another offer for more money over here, why should I do that? So and I'm looking at some of the comments right now. Jeff says they still have agents, just less loyalty to them. And maybe that's the shift we're seeing. I thought everybody was really being loyal, in May and June and even July. Maybe this is this whole August thing. People think August is normal. I don't think so. Pam says with tight inventory, buyers hope to appeal to the listing agent to represent them to have the advantage. Yeah, I think that's what they think, but I don't think that really helps in a market like this, especially when you get into bidding wars situations. It's kind of a uneven alliance there. Janine says, I think people are done with being safe for whatever reason. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And Harry, do realtors not understand that no open houses is a good thing? They have to go to a realtor to purchase a home. Yeah, and I'm with you on that one, Harry. I think, I kind of like this no open house stuff. And I know people are going to say, oh my God, Lisa, why did you say that? And I was like open house fanatic. But you know what? I kind of enjoy not being somebody's Sunday afternoon entertainment. Kind of like what you said, Lori.
Yeah. Well, I will share that I was on a meeting last week, a local meeting, and we were peripherally talking about COVID and some of the best practices, but somebody had written in the chat that it's an office manager who said, been getting calls from sellers about open houses. This person didn't specify whether they were, I want your agents to do open houses, or why can't you do open houses? Not sure, was it a complaint or a request to do open houses? So that office manager called the Irvine Police Department, and they said, "Oh, it's fine, you can do them." So I'm thinking, "Good Lord, here we go again. We've got an agency who is not issuing the guidance, who is interpreting the guidance, saying it's okay, and then who knows how many agents could call up and hear that information." And I know right now I'm repeating this information, but again, open houses are not legal. And yet this is considered to be an enforcement agency. And so it makes sense that people would call and say, hey, these people are having a gathering. Is it okay? And if they're answering yes, that puts more misinformation out there for our industry and for the consumers. And so, just a reminder that it's not the police who has the authority on this, who can make the decision, who can, and apparently they're not going to enforce it, but we have to follow the OSHA and the Department of Health guidelines. And there was a comment on the CAR meeting last week about, okay, look, we all know the intent of open houses is to bring people in, which is essentially a gathering.
Exactly.
And so, we cannot gather inside the house. And if you are enticing people to gather outside the house, it's still a gathering. So I thought that was an interesting perspective on it. Another way to look at one of the reasons why open houses are not okay. You're inviting a gathering.
And you would think that that would be common sense, but then again, we're seeing gatherings all over the place, and we've got such mixed messages out there. And I kind of think about the water conserving fixture law that went into effect a few years ago. And it's kind of like, okay, everybody has to have this fixture in on whatever date. And, it's like, did you see huge long lines at Lowe's and Home Depot with everybody buying toilets, and trying to, conform? And then it's like, so house doesn't have it. That's against the law. Well, who are you going to call to enforce this is not a water saving toilet? And as silly as that sounds, we're kind of in the same thing. Yes, it's a mandate. Yes, we're not supposed to be doing these things. Who is enforcing it? And I think, common sense, again, something that sometimes people in this industry are in short supply of, would say you shouldn't be doing this, especially if a house has people living in it. That to me is just the height of carelessness, and probably could be looked at as negligence to a certain extent, because why would you want to just randomly have strangers walking through a house that you don't know who they are until you're asking them to sign something at the door? And again, are they going to really tell you who they really are? So it's really just kind of a crazy situation, and I'm seeing less of it. I'm seeing the same people doing them, but I'm not seeing an increase in it. But I think the consumers are kind of doing I want to go to open houses. Where are the open houses I want to go? And that's kind of an interesting little twist. I don't know if any of you guys are seeing it. Stick it in the comments. Stick it in the comments what you guys are seeing.
The movie theaters are closed, so they have nothing to do on the weekend.
Yeah, and they can't go and eat brunch inside anymore, and it's a little too hot for them to be sitting outside, and we're in Orange County, and I know we have people from different counties here, and LA definitely has their act together a little bit more than Orange County. We're just kind of naturally rebels, I guess you could say. And we're seeing like, well, this is bothering me, so I don't want to do this. I want to go to an open house. I want you to show me this house, whether I'm qualified to buy it or not. And, I think it's kind of an interesting dynamic. I've never been more embarrassed sometimes to say that I'm from Orange County right now. I don't know. That's one thing that bothers me, is the cavalierness. We all, at this point, we all know somebody who has either had it or has passed away from it. A lot of people are like, oh, it's no big deal. A friend of mine in Arizona, a realtor there who did long distance biking, he's probably in his 50s. He ended up in the hospital, and he sounds horrible. And it's like, is he ever going to be able to get on a bike again and go ride? Again, COVID roulette, I'm not in. I'd rather play maybe COVID bingo, but not COVID roulette.
How does COVID bingo work?
Well, number one, you only have so many squares, and usually it involves Zoom.
Is it a blackout? Oh, okay. Well, if it's the, like, what did they say? When you hear this phrase, okay. I guess
versus I've got the rotating wheel of people coming in. Who's going to have it? So that's just my own personal take. I think I've been inside too long.
Yes, I think I've been inside too long too. So I was glad to, venture out this weekend. I was feeling like some cabin fever last week, where I'm just like, I need to go. I literally wanted to go running, and I don't run. So I was like,
oh my gosh.
Run. I just have this pent up energy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. You get tired. And the one thing that was really cool about, our job in real estate is actually, excuse me, it's kind of a physical job. And no, that's just clearing my throat. Don't have the Rona. We're all good. But, we'd get in the car and we'd go here and we'd go there and we'd see this person, go to this meeting and check out this house and blah, blah, blah. And now we don't go anywhere.
Now we don't go anywhere. And I was thinking about it the other day. We'll get onto an actual topic in a second here. But I was thinking about it the other day, like, this has been a pretty mild temperatured summer. We've had a couple really hot days. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, maybe I'm just not going in and out of the car in the house like I was. And so I'm not noticing it. I'm in my air conditioned home. And if I go check the mail every 3 days or so. I go out there for 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, it's hot out here. come back inside and oh, it's nice and cool in here. So I don't even know like what's going on out there. And you and I were kind of chatting a little bit about vacations. You mentioned it earlier, like where are people going? I mean, I think that some agents are taking time away. I know a few that have mentioned, places they've gone. People are renting Airbnbs like crazy. I mean, those were shut down immediately for I don't even know how long, 6 weeks at least. But now I've talked to a couple people that have told me, oh, I just rented a place, with a pool, and that's my family vacation. And I thought, I don't know, I guess you're not in a crowd like you would be at a hotel, but you're still in a place that's like a home that is large, couple bedrooms if you're bringing your family, right? And I don't know how I would feel about, was it clean? Do I have to go in and clean it? And I know my sister and her family went a couple weeks ago to Lake Arrowhead, and my sister has two kids, 10 years old, well, he just turned 11, and 7. And she's like, those kids touch everything, and then they touch their face and they touch their mouth, and she's like, I was paranoid the whole weekend I was there. I'm like, sounds like a great time.
Yeah,
I didn't go. I didn't want. I'm like, thank you, but no thanks. I'm not ready to gather with a bunch of you who are hanging out with a bunch of other people too. No thanks.
Well, and it seems that maybe, some of the people here in our comments might be too busy to go on vacation, because it appears that Pam and Harry and Jeff are going to start a posse. And an open house violator posse. And, those are 3 people I wouldn't want coming after me. I'll tell you that.
Well, just be sure to send me the photos, and I'll give you my vote.
Yes, I like this. Let's have them form a posse and post the photos in the nerdy group. So,
that's awesome. So yeah, we were talking about vacations, and I think we were considering some of the best practices of vacations. Something simple, kind of back to common sense. We should just rename this group Common Sense.
I think so. Nerdy Realtors for Common Sense. How about that?
Common effing sense.
And remember, people, this is your president-elect talking.
I got that from an agent who's doing a diet, and it's the CFS diet, Common Effing Sense diet.
I like that.
That's where I got that from. So don't blame me.
Okay. Yeah, she's just passing on what she heard. That's
I abbreviated, so I'm good.
Well, and Pam wants to know, is Home Depot a vacation? Maybe if you start living in one of the little sheds out front that they have, that they have built so you can see.
That they do have a nice garden center, and if they've got some fountains going, yeah.
Yeah, grab one of those plastic chairs out front. I'll be looking for you out there, Pam. Maybe I'll go try that. I'm curious if you're actually planning on going on vacation. Put it in your comments. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just, like I said, I'm just one of those people that, I haven't talked about the COVID scale. Remember how I talked about the COVID scale where 1, you're off flicking doorknobs, and 10, you're wrapped in bubble wrap with a snorkel? I think I'm still pushing a 7 on that. I'm just a little. What about you?
I'm probably a 5. I think I've remained I am pretty neutral in my life generally. I mean, if I feel really passionate one way or another about something, otherwise I'm pretty neutral. I think because I'm inside my home, in my bubble, I don't think about a lot of things most of the day. And when I do go out into the world, first 2 months, it was like, come home, I need to take a shower. Now it's like, I didn't touch anything, I'm good. Wash my hands, I'm good. Wipe down all my groceries, things like that. But I'm probably a 5.
Yeah.
I will not be licking any doorknobs ever. Although my husband did say early on, he's like, I just want to lick somebody that has it so I can get it and be done. And I'm like, well, okay. Please don't come near me after that happens.
Wheel of COVID. Well, so if somebody is going to take off for vacation, what's of the common effing sense thing should they do?
Oh my gosh. We've gone to the dark side today.
Sorry, people, we've gone off the rails here. It's
We
early.
will be back to normal. This is vacation Lori. I don't know. We'll be back to normal next week. You know, I think a lot of things that agents really don't consider is we can work anywhere, but we don't necessarily have to tell people we're on vacation. That's perfectly fine as long as you're answering your phone and your emails. If you're not, then you know, don't go hiding out. You need to let somebody know. You need to have a point person for your transaction, for your clients. Your broker needs to know who do they contact if an issue comes up or a question comes up about your transaction or a buyer you're working with. And I find that a lot of agents, they just don't communicate that. You know, there's a lot of different options. You know, a lot of agents will have a TC and they automatically think that their TC is going to handle their job while they're away. That is not your TC's job. If it's your personal assistant, that's a different story. But if you're using the office TC or an outside independent TC, their job is not to replace you ever, let alone when you're on vacation. So have that dedicated point person. Maybe you work out an arrangement with a colleague, you know, preferably from the same company, because otherwise you'll have an agency issue. But you know, you have someone from your company that, hey, I'm going to be away. Can you cover for me for a couple days? And when you go away, I'll cover for you for a couple days.
You bring up a good point. A good point. And I think this is something that most people don't think about, because I really didn't think about it too much until you started bringing it up. And that is the agency situation when two agents from other companies are working together on the same side of something. Why don't you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, it's an issue a lot of people don't understand. They think, well, as long as I have another agent that I'm working with, however that relationship looks like, that they're okay. You know, it's a licensed person, so what's the problem? But we have to go back to the fundamentals, which is the agency relationship that is confirmed explains who is representing who. And if you are from two different brokerages, you now have an implied agency with the person from another brokerage because they are talking about the property, they're talking about the transaction. Even if they're just giving the price in the context of, hey, I'm hosting an open house and I'm going to tell you about the property. So it's not like I've sent you the MLS sheet. So I'm not an agent of the property if I send you an MLS sheet that has the price and the details. But if I'm at the house hosting an open house, I am now representing that house. Now, you know, we could argue, well, I'm there to really get buyers. Well, the reality is the buyers are coming in to ask about that house. And now you're making representations about that house. And that creates an implied agency, and it also pulls you into potential for liability. So at a minimum, you have to have an agency agreement completed so that the person you're talking to, working with, understands what your role is with this. And if you're doing an open house for another company's property, you need to have an agency with that seller because you are representing that property. So a lot of agents forget that. They just think, oh, it's no big deal. It's easy. There are some companies who do not allow co-lists. If I work for broker A and you work for broker B and we have a mutual friend who wants to list the house with both of us, you know, oh, sure, let's co-list. There's a lot of liability with that. And there's a lot of confusion, room for confusion. And do you have two sets of paperwork? Probably. Are both going to be pulled into a lawsuit? Probably. So it's not something that's encouraged, and a lot of big companies don't allow it, but it does come up occasionally. So if you have any type of working relationship with another agent, you know, you need to think about whether you're actually making representations about that property or not, or about that client's situation or not, and do an agency agreement. And then second is have something in writing on how this relationship is going to look like. You need to have something like if I'm sending you leads, and those people come back to me instead of you, but you showed them the property. What's our arrangement? What's our financial agreement? You know, because I don't want to just use somebody. Somebody might want to use somebody to just show them, you know, just unlock the door for them. And then, you know, but come back to me and I'll write the offer. Like, you need to know to protect yourself. What's my role here? And am I going to get paid on this? So, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I know in the past we had in our office a situation that was a divorce, and the husband and wife couldn't agree on an agent. So it was like, okay, both of them are going to list the house. Now, something like that, I mean, if your company policy is, well, we don't do that, but you have something that basically is part of the divorce thing, is that something that maybe would be an exception? Not that this happens all the time. Most of the time they'll just say, let's get a neutral third party agent. But I thought it was interesting the time it did happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to the decision maker of the company. You know, ideally you have a policy that you can hold fairly and consistency. I'm all about that. If you're going to come up with a policy, let's have fair and consistent practices with it. You know, the agent that doesn't do any business, who's going to take my word for it that it's a policy, who comes to me and asks, and I say no, I'm sticking to the policy. But the top producer, who I don't want to leave the company, if I say yes, now I have no policy. I have an exception. And when it comes to working with policies and making those exceptions, you know, it's like having a law with no enforcement entity to enforce the law. Why bother?
But hey, it's just like those water conserving toilets and COVID open houses.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of other things going on right now too. So, you know, I mean, can you make exceptions? Yeah, I mean, it's legal to do, but companies, you know, brokers need to make policy so that they can have consistent operations and that the agents know that they can rely on the policies for answers. But if you're making a one-off exception here and a one-off exception there, pretty soon you have no policy. So it can be done, but it's up to the company to make that decision and then communicate it. Because I'll tell you, if we were working, you know, if we didn't have our own brokerage and we were working somewhere else and we were working together, and I asked that question and was told no, and you asked that question and was told yes, and then I found out, I'd be asking, what the heck? Like, how come it's okay for her, but I can't do it? Why is she better than me? You know, and then you start to create retention issues in your brokerage. So you have to be really mindful of that.
Well, and also I think it's going to be interesting when we see a return to open houses, whenever that might be. You know, I used to routinely get calls from outside agents. Can I hold your house open? Can I hold your house open? And most of them were with the larger brokerages. Do you even think that people are telling agents about these things, about you shouldn't be co-listing? And you know, that's kind of a more of an office management kind of thing. But maybe those of you out there that are with the large brokerages, you know, when you hear that, when it comes back up, or the co-listing thing, it's something that's not really talked about a lot. You know, it's people are, oh, it's okay, I'm going to go hold open houses, or their sales manager tells them, go hold open house to go get buyers. Well, you know, this is a whole new agency thing. And until I heard it from Lori, it was like, oh yeah, you're at such and such brokerage. Well, you know, I really don't like it because I don't want people I don't know representing my listings. I would always, you know, prefer to have my own company people here. But they're encouraging it. Some of them are encouraging it. So, you know, when that day comes, which who knows when it will be, maybe all of us can remember that. So
yeah, and keep in mind too, I mean, something as simple as a flyer. So if you and I work for different brokerages and I want to hold your listing open, okay, so I need an agency. I need, if we're working together in any additional capacity other than me holding the open house, then we need some sort of working relationship documented, financial and roles and responsibilities. But even think about the flyer. So now I'm going to use your flyer. Well, I want my flyer. So I'm going to create a flyer. Maybe not get your template, But now I have to disclose the company I work for. But guess what? I'm not the listing brokerage. So I need to give attribution to the listing brokerage. You're not going to see two logos on a flyer. And that's the danger with the co-list as well. I remember years ago, we had one situation where we had an approved co-list. I didn't approve it, but I got outvoted, even though I was a broker. I got outvoted until we got to the point of the marketing pieces. And we had two very well-known competing entities on the same flyer on the draft. That didn't fly on either side. And so it was nixed. And then it was, you know what? We should just do a referral arrangement. And that's what ended up happening. Now, in the case of your divorce situation, that probably wouldn't have worked. But in other situations, why not?
Exactly. And it's interesting, in the comments, Harry mentions also which agent retains that client for future business.
It's a good question.
And Pam mentioned that there's an E&O issue with other agents doing open houses on a home from a different brokerage.
Yeah, you definitely could have an issue there.
Yeah. So, but things we don't have to worry about right now. Maybe the co-listing, but the open houses we don't have to worry about.
Well, I had a co-list question last week, and I was able to talk it through. And at the end of the call, that person said, "Yeah, this doesn't sound like anything I want to do. We'll figure out a referral arrangement."
Yeah, and I think that is kind of the most interesting aspect is once you start asking, can you do these things? That's when you're like, oh, because it doesn't happen really that often. And the fine points, of every possible thing that could ever go on, you don't really know until it hits you in the face. So it's a good reminder that there's more to it than just like, oh, we can co-list. And I think a lot of it comes from, you see it on the forums and stuff like that. So you're like, well, if it's on a CAR form, well, then it must be okay. But there's so much more to it than that. I think it's just a good idea to, ask questions of whoever you have to ask questions of and make sure you're doing it right. Because especially, I'm going to circle back to the vacation thing. If you're at a small, if you're an independent broker, what's the best thing that you can do if you need coverage? Like we're talking lone wolf type situation.
Lone wolf, yeah. Well, that's where you're going to have to then find, probably another independent broker, and you work out some sort of operating relationship where, as needed, we'll assist each other. We'll do the agency, but we'll have a written agreement between each other, and include, what does happen to the clients in the future. I had a client that requested something like that about 2 years ago, and she's an independent broker, and so I drafted an agreement for her that allowed her to anticipate some of these things that could come up, and how would she handle it. She had a very informal relationship with another independent broker, and they were friends for years, so they had developed trust. But it never hurts to have something in writing. It only protects you, because you never know when the relationship's going to go bad, and this will make it ugly real fast.
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of back up for a second. When you think about a creative idea in how to operate your business, sometimes as agents, we just think, oh, we could do that. And that would get a lot of attention. We'd get a lot of business from that. But, I challenge everybody, put a broker hat on. Lisa and I have had this conversation a couple of times. She's like, well, can I do this? And I said, you can't. And she's like, why not? Okay, well, here's why. Because I'm a broker. So I put my broker hat on. I put my risk management hat on. And the negligence bubble. Okay, how do we avoid negligence here? And sometimes you have to kind of think that through. And so if you're a salesperson or you're a broker associate, you have somebody to go to ask these questions. But it never hurts to improve yourself, improve your professionalism by thinking, okay, if I were the broker and one of my agents came to me with this idea, how would I feel? What are the dangers? And so that's kind of the point of view. That is the point of view I'm always looking at. And so, luckily I don't have agents that are like off the charts crazy. Just occasionally there's, well, what about this? you're not off the charts crazy. You're still on the charts.
Depends who you talk to. And Harry, I don't want to hear from you.
But it's so important to kind of talk through these scenarios to see what could happen. And, you and I have both said this about ourselves. We're always that, playing devil's advocate, that person in the room that always sounds negative. It's like, no, we're anticipating the issues. Some people anticipate the opportunities. I anticipate the issues. I'm not good with opportunity. I am not going to come up with that $5 million idea. But if you come up with it, I'm going to figure out what could go wrong with it. That's the role that I play. And so, it's so important to be able to kind of look at it from the different perspectives and imagine, okay, what could go wrong? Because if you have to stand in front of a judge and explain what you did, you better not sound foolish. You better have thought this through and have, everything lined up, your documentation clean, and your presentation of facts, ready to go.
Definitely. And that's the way that we should always look at our files, the way that we conduct ourselves. My previous life before real estate, I had to do a lot of out lawyering lawyers. That's hard to say. But it taught me at that point in time that, okay, I have to be able to stand in front of a judge and be able to defend the position of what I did and why I did it and when I did it. And, and that's the one thing that we really do need to think about. And I think a lot of this, asking people to help, asking people to coverage, people don't really think about all of the liability and issues that can go into it. So, it's good to bring this up because it's something that usually the realtor on the street is not thinking about. They're just like, oh, I'm going to go on vacation and I'm going to ask, Susie Q over here to help me out, not realizing that, you can get yourself in all kinds of situations. But now one thing too, talking about vacations and you mentioned, about, oh, well, I can do my work. And I know Mary Jane put a comment in that she was like rocking 5 escrows while she was in Italy and everything. But you should always have a contingency plan because you might think you might be able to do it. You get where you are and you have no Wi-Fi connection and you're like, oh crap, I've got offers coming in and I can't connect to, even my cell phone won't work. You should always have a backup plan. Have that person lined up, whether it's an agent in your office, your assistant, whoever, saying, I'll let you know if I can't get a connection, because then you're going to need to step in for me, because you might think you've got it handled and then find out you really don't. So always have that plan B, that contingency plan, just to be sure that your clients aren't even going to know that you're gone.
Right.
But if somebody needs to step in, they can at least explain, well, she's out of the area for the day, I'm helping her out, or something like that. So
and it's so important, we need our time off. And I mean, I've been on vacation where people didn't know I was on vacation. And I tell you, I get a little bitter that I have to check email. So why do I want to put myself through that? Let me find somebody who can just handle it. If you put a listing on the market on Friday in a hot market and you leave for vacation on Saturday, that's not good timing. You better have a contingency plan. And if nothing else, let the agents who are submitting offers to you know what the plan is. When are you planning to connect with the seller and give them all of the offers? Because I hear that a lot. Agents are left hanging, and then they ask the question, what happens with the expiration period? I said, well, technically, if it's past your expiration period, your offer is no longer valid. But what happens? The buyers want the property. So they're like, it's fine, we'll wait. And then listing agents are not communicating what the timing's going to look like. Give people a way to understand what to expect. Set those expectations and communicate. Contingency plan. There's even a form, you guys, the additional agent agreement. That way, if you do have another agent helping you, have that agent sign that form so that they are working with you. And again, preferably from the same company.
Yeah, that's usually the best thing to do. Definitely the best thing. Yeah, and I think I've been hearing that a lot from people. I don't know if the market is starting to cool a little bit because August is August, right? But we don't know, is this COVID August or is this regular August and people are taking vacations? But I guess Yellowstone, according to the comments, is about the only place anybody's going.
Oh, so everybody's at Yellowstone?
That's what I think Janine, I think, said that. But, you know, what's the market doing? Is the market doing what August normally does, which is everybody goes on vacation and then there's nobody out here to show buyers, so the buyers don't go see houses? I noticed this weekend it was a little slower than I anticipated. Um, I, I think our spring market that started a couple of months late may be doing what it traditionally does. But I don't know. What are you guys seeing out there? What did you hear? I missed Stephen Thomas last week, Lori. What was his synopsis in a nutshell?
Oh gosh, I'm not good at repeating like that kind of information that I hear. I remember days on market went down in Orange County. I think it was one day, and inventory was quite a bit lighter this week. But I think we're in another space of uncertainty. You know, people are prepping for their kids to go back to school. Some are starting this week, some are starting next week. It seems everybody's starting online, but everyone's kind of again uncertain. And with that uncertainty, I think people kind of hide out, and that could be part of, you know, one of the reasons why there's not as much activity, because, you know, well, if my kid can remain at the school, I don't know, my kids are grown, so I don't think about these things anymore.
I don't either. I am so happy that I have adult children that do not have kids right now.
Oh my gosh, I am right there with you. I don't know what I would do if I had kids at home and I had to homeschool. So for all of you out there doing it, God bless you.
Heavier than I am already.
Oh my gosh, my sister's got two, and I just feel bad for people. So I'm glad I don't have to go through that either. But I think people are trying to figure out, like, what does this look like? And like they're making another adjustment in their life, because, you know, some people have gone back to work and then now they're not anymore. I know a lot of people that work in other industries that are in offices where, you know, one case in an office closes the office, or people say, you know what, I don't feel safe. You know, I'm walking around here and no one's wearing masks in the common areas and up the elevator, and even within my own office, I don't want to be here. And so a lot of people went back to work but are now continuing working back home. So I think people are trying to figure it out again of what is life going to look like, and what do I need, and do I need to move now? And, you know, I'm truly in a bubble. I am in my home. I don't know what's going on in the world most of the time. I don't watch a ton of news because it's all doom and gloom, and real estate is great. So life is great. I haven't been adversely impacted very much, other than a few people I know health-wise. But when I do hear about other industries, it's bad out there. And so
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who are uncertain too about whether they're going to have jobs this fall. We've already been hearing a lot of the hotels and airline industries that are going to be letting people go.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to trickle into other industries too. So I think we're in like the third space of uncertainty. This is like the third time we're all just feeling like what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch with the, you know, and I'm not going to start talking news and politics or whatever, but we're in kind of a transition phase right now that things need to kind of get straightened out, so people are going to be able to know what they can do based on assistance. So I think we are in a really interesting time, but we've got a couple of interesting questions that came up. I don't even think I'm going to be able to cover my last topic. Becky, I'm not sure if Becky's first time here or not, but I know she put this question in the group, and she's bringing it up again, which she had an offer where in the additional terms it said buyer to pay TC fee. I don't think this is okay. Isn't the RPA between buyer and seller terms between agent and client don't belong in RPA?
Yeah, she's absolutely right. And it's interesting timing, Becky. Thanks for the question. Because this was on the CAR town hall meeting last week. This question came up as part of a longer conversation about TC fees and administrative fees. And yes, we were reminded that that is between that agreement is between the buyer and seller. And so if you're asking your client to pay the TC fee, that needs to be a separate agreement, not on the RPA. I know for a long time people were putting it there because it documented it, and it let the buyer know that you have this fee to pay, but you really should be putting that on a separate document, and then have it just between you and the client.
I think that is the cheesiest thing ever. I'm sorry if any of you guys do that. It's like, we run businesses. That's what we do. And if we can't do it all by ourselves and we have to get a TC, then guess what? That means you're busy and you're making money. So why, I mean, does your dentist charge you extra for having the dental hygienist do your teeth? Or you go to get your hair done and you have a shampoo girl or person? Does the stylist say, oh, I'm sorry, you know what, Pierre over there, you got to pay him to wash your hair? That's part of the cost of doing business. Your stylist is so busy that she's got to have Pierre washing your hair so she can be doing whatever for the next client, because they're that busy earning money. Why? Oh my God, if somebody can justify it, I think that's my cost of doing business. And Becky, I think, mentioned in her post it was kind of cheesy, and I know Sherry Brahmi brought it up that she thought it was cheesy. I think it's cheesy. I think we should act like professionals. And when the form came out, one of the COVID forms came out about seller to pay for PPE, I'm like, are you serious? If you can't afford the cost of doing business, you shouldn't be in the business in the first place.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that there's two schools of thought on that, and people have reasons on either side. But I can say a decade ago, the fee was typically paid 50% of the time by the agent and 50% of the time by the client. And some more recent statistics I read probably 2 years ago, though, was more like 80% of the agents that were using a TC were paying for the fee.
Yeah. So, I was kind of surprised to even see that people were doing that, because I kind of thought it went away. And, it's kind of sad, because really we're talking a few $100s out of how many thousands are you making?
And believe me, sometimes those few $100s, people would act like it's $1 million they just paid and abuse TCs. So, yeah, it's a personal decision, but yeah, you should have that on a separate agreement if you're charging the client.
Yeah,
and be careful if it can be perceived as a commission. The language has to be pretty specific. So check with your broker, because you have to be able to demonstrate that it's an additional service the client would not otherwise get. And it's really hard to justify that when it's documents and schedules and timeframes. What's the additional service? So.
Yeah, I think that, yes. And yes, Becky, cheesy and cheap. That's perceived as that. I would rather be looked at as a professional that has staff to better serve my clients. I really think that that gives us more of a professional demeanor, for lack of a better word. Just saying, I have a staff, and my staff is here to take care of you, and I'm making a business that I don't have to worry about it. But.
And if you really started to calculate how much time your TC spends working on your transaction, a lot of times the agents don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So a lot of times they'll think, oh, my TC, they could just do that real quick. They don't spend a lot of time on my file. I spend more time following up with them than they do actually working. And that's not true at all. I would say early 2000s, the statistic that I read then was that the average TC would spend at least 30 hours on a file. Now we have much more automation than we did in the early 2000s, but I would guess it's at least still 20 hours. And if you were to, take the $400 you spend, divide it by 20 hours, that's $20 an hour. Okay, that's not unreasonable to pay for assistance. And yet, if you use your own hourly rate, if you calculate what your own hourly rate is, and let's say it's $200 an hour, you don't want to be spending 20 hours at your rate when you could be spending 20 hours at 20 bucks an hour.
Exactly.
So, you know, sometimes we look at it as, oh, I just want to save the 400 bucks. You know what? TCs are one of the hardest working parts of the business because they are really looking out for the agent. And, you know, if you want to have better risk management, have a second set of eyes who does this all day, every day, and who's not out showing property and trying to be on listing appointments and doing this, that, and the other thing to actually generate business. They're actually working on the transaction, making sure everything goes smoothly. So it's a great investment. Don't be cheap.
Exactly. I don't know what I would do without my assistant, honestly. But she just slaps me around, keeps me in line, and you know what? I pay her more than I would be paying a TC, but it's worth every penny to be sure that I've got somebody, you know, crossing my T's and dotting my I's, because I'm out here doing things that I do, and files aren't my strong point. And it's good to, you know, you have to have somebody pick up that slack for you, where, you know, if we're off here hustling with our clients and, you know, getting the listings done and doing this and doing that, you know, pay to have the help, you know, is leverage and scale. That's really what it is.
Absolutely.
We have another question. I'm gonna save my ShowingTime stuff for next week. So next week, well, I'll finish up the show with next week. Is this a show? I don't even know. Oh, but we have a question about shows, but Jeff's question for shows is going to be last. Nick, one of our favorite people in the world. Nick says, curious. Yes, he's hiding from his children for his vacation. That's what he said.
That's awesome.
And Nick says, curious to see how the CVA is working in the wild. Theoretically a great form, but I would love to know what others are seeing. Are agents using it with offers? Are they seeing them countered out of offers by sellers? Do other agents understand what it is for? I'm not seeing them. I'm not seeing them anywhere, anyhow. What's the statewide thing? Are they talking about it at all?
No, nobody's talking about it. And in fact, CAR had mentioned a few weeks back that, you know, they put that form together early on because there was a need, because nobody knew how any of the timing would be impacted and what decisions may need to be made ahead of time before you fall into a hole of, you know, so-and-so lost their job or the appraiser can't get out there. But yeah, they had the same general sense of no one's really using it now. And now they didn't pull up any stats on it, and they certainly can do that through zip forms. They can log how many users there are. And all I remember was them mentioning just like that fell off the cliff, like nobody's using it.
Yeah, I think it was one of those forms that they thought was, you know, when you look at what's going on in April and, you know, in May, we're like, oh my God, we're all going to die. Yeah, you know, nobody's going to have a job. And, you know, none of us have ever been through this before, you know, I mean, God, if I had a buck for every time people were asking me questions back in April and May, and they're, well, what do you think's going to happen? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never sold real estate during a global pandemic. How do I know what's going to happen? And I think that that CAR jumped on a lot of things quickly, which was good because it could have become a problem. Yvonne mentioned, she said that she had a COVID exposure delay situation where they used the form. I haven't really ran across it. Not to say that we may not see it.
Right.
You know, in the fall, if you know, everybody thought this was going to go away in the summer. It ain't. You know, I mean, we're
July.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, I will say there is good news that the R rate for the reproduction and passing it around has dropped quite a bit. Maybe because it's warmer, I don't know, but you know, we could be all back in this for the rest of the year. I don't know. So who knows? We've got the forms and we're not afraid to use them, right?
Yeah. I think it was a necessary form, and right now it's not necessary, but it may come up. I think people are giving up their contingencies right now. They're not worried about being unable to remove them. They're giving them up to begin with because it's so competitive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just crazy stuff going on. We're getting close to 11 o'clock, so we'll try to be cognizant of everybody's time here. But Jeff Moss had the best question ever.
Okay.
What's everybody watching on TV right now? Put it in the comments, folks. I want to know.
I'm personally watching on Hulu Difficult People. It's a Tina Fey and Amy Poehler production from 2015 to 16, 17. It's not in production anymore. You wanna really understand New York. That's a cool show. I like some kind of sinister shows. That's not the word I'm looking for. There's a word. I don't know. I don't know what the word is, but it's not PC at all. It's not. It's awesome. So
Probably where you're getting all these acronyms for.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm watching. Oh, and there's a 5-part series on Netflix called what's it called? It's a reality show, like it's called something like Love with Autism, and it's about a group of different young adults in Australia who are all autistic, different levels on the spectrum. It's fascinating. It's so sweet. It's about them just wanting what anyone wants, is to find love, and so it's a really sweet program.
Oh, that sounds
5
cool.
episodes. Yeah, I just smiled through the whole thing, like just watching these people and just going out and you know they have social challenges, and so for them they have to learn how to date, and so it was really fascinating.
Wow, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah. Oh, Love on the Spectrum, that's what it's called.
Love on the Spectrum. Oh, I'll have to check that out. Gosh, let's see. I'm like 2 extremes right now. One that's trying to get me to understand more and to open my mind and understand the racial injustice and systemic racism. I'm watching the United Shades of America on CNN with W. Kamau Bell, I believe his name is. Really a fascinating show. If you know, you're like, oh, there's no, you know, systemic racism, how's, you know, just watch that show. And it's not only about systemic racism, it's about different situations in the country. They had a very interesting show starting off with black cowboys, which is something that you don't immediately think of. And it was fascinating because it was about being an independent farmer in the United States right now. And that, you know, there's problems that the black farm owners have that the white farm owners aren't facing. But then again, there's a whole set of problems that the white farmers are facing, which is affecting all of the farmers. And it's called the United Shades of America, Becky. And, you know, it's really very eye-opening. He, you know, did things on schools. What was the first one? I don't know. Good show, though. If you can pick it up, it's really, really an eye-opening educational show. And then my guilty.
Wait, I have to say something. You know, you and I are so different.
Oh, no. You didn't get to my guilty pleasure show.
They're so different because, you know, I'm compliance queen by day and I watch trashy TV by night. And you're watching, you know, something that's opening your mind. And
oh, and then I'm watching old reruns of The Challenge on MTV.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, it's like soap opera meets gladiators. It's just pure unadulterated trash, but you know, that's what I'm into. But we got some great stuff coming in. Schitt's Creek's coming back.
Good. Great show. Love it.
Let's see, Selling on Sunset. Let's see, 90 Day Fiance, Shameless, Council of Dads, all kinds of stuff.
Council of Dads is good.
Hey, somebody go throw this on the wall on the page and let's see what everybody's watching. I think that would be really interesting. And also, I want to know, does anybody watch the trashy real estate shows? Maybe they're not trashy. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe, does anybody watch the real estate shows like $1 Million Listing, Flip or Flop, all that stuff? I personally have an aversion to it. I can't do it just because I yell at the TV all the time. That you can't do that? There's
Well, it's
no
kind
verbal
of,
contracts in California.
yeah, I think some of them are less about real estate and more about the relationships, the personalities.
Which I can't really say anything because I think I was in a 5-second clip of one of those shows. It was fascinating. It was fascinating watching how the production got put together. I will, yeah. Anyhow, okay, it's 11:01. Shall we wrap this up?
Sure.
All righty. Well, I see the comments are still going. I love it. Golden Girls from Pam.
Oh, that was a great show.
Yeah, we have to figure out which one of us is going to be which one.
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyhow.
I don't really think of them are like us.
A little of this one mixed with a little of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that note, folks, we will see you all next week. And I think our topics will be some of the ones that we didn't cover, which will be how are the apps working for you? The stuff that's come up during COVID, like ShowingTime, the resurgence or the disapproval of ShowingTime, the Glide Peed widget, all of that good stuff. So come with your stories and let's talk about what are we not using, what should we be using, and what do we really despise. So we'll do that next week. Okay. All righty, everybody. Thank you so much. Go out, sell a house, and have a great week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.